All right, so this is our 6-week metabolic reset program. Just a little itinerary of how the next 45 minutes or so will go. We'll talk a little bit about nutrition, sort of the do's and the don'ts, and a little bit about the psychology behind nutrition, because that's hugely important of why we make the choices we make. And then we'll go through like the detailed 6-week metabolic reset. So we'll kind of walk through that step by step. So I put the whole presentation on one slide. It's the only slide. Eat less crap and just eat more food. So less carbonated drinks, less refined sugars, artificial sweeteners, processed food. You just got to eat more fruits and veggies, lean protein, omega-3 fats, and water. Any questions? Have a good night. Yeah, I mean, and most people know that. That's kind of basic 101 knowledge. So the question is, why do we consistently choose the donut over the apple? Because, yep, ease, it tastes better, right? Because I did this to a group of 6th graders a couple years ago, and I asked them, I said, what's healthier for you, a donut or an apple? And every single one of them, of course, said apple. So even our middle school kids know that apples are better than donuts. But why do we consistently choose the unhealthy food, the donut, over the apple? And I think it's really 2 reasons. Number one is we don't understand the devastation that's caused by that donut. At the cellular level, we don't really know what it really does to our physiology, and then we don't understand the devastation of missing that apple, because we don't associate that donut with significantly higher rates of diabetes and cancer and arthritis and allergies and autoimmune disorders and chronic fatigue and cancer, and we don't associate that apple with significantly less rates of all those diseases. You know, we just think the donut might add a few extra pounds, might make our kid a little bit squirrely, but it's legitimately, it's poison. And the thing is too, is we'll typically feed our kids better than we feed our dogs, right? Like I hear it all the time, like, no, Timmy, don't give that chips and soda to the dog. That's for you and your friends. It'll make him sick. That's for you and your buddies, right? To the point that we can almost laugh about that, but the reality is it's poisoning our children, right? So it's really a mindset thing. You guys like chocolate? Chocolate? Come on in.
Here we are.
You're here. So we're just asking if you like chocolate, raise your hand.
Oh, yeah.
What's your favorite kind of chocolate?
Any kind of chocolate.
Any kind of chocolate? You don't have a favorite?
I don't know. Those Lindt.
Yeah.
But it's just a really fancy kind of Swiss.
I like those.
Good, yeah.
Favorite chocolate?
Any Belgian chocolate.
Yep. I'm more like anything I can bite into and like caramel just gushes everywhere. That's my kind of chocolate. There was a research study a few years ago. They asked women, this is in Great Britain, they said, what do you like better, sex or chocolate? And they all said chocolate because it lasts longer, right? That was a joke. But if I took your favorite chocolate and I laced it with arsenic, so colorless, odorless, tasteless arsenic, would you eat it? And of course not, right? Why? We just changed your belief system. So this food that our mouths would water over, we literally just turned that into something that's repulsive because we changed our belief system, what we think about that food. And that's really the underlying problem, is we don't really think our choices they really don't matter that much. And we've been marketed to death to believe that our choices really don't matter. You know, just it's all about your genetics and you just do whatever you want. Choices don't make that much difference. Listen to the science and trust the experts, right? And the fact is, our choices make all the difference. It's really the difference that makes the difference is our choice. So there's 6 essentials of every cell, and they're essential for 2 reasons. Number one, they're essential because they're essential, and you have to have them. And the other reason they're essential is because our body can't make them. You have to get them from the outside or from the diet. 22 amino acids, antioxidants, fatty acids, live enzymes, vitamins, minerals, and trace minerals. What does that sound like? Like fruits and veggies, right? Like real food that's made by God. And then here's the health crisis that we're in is really, it really comes down to a thing called inflammation. And a lot of people have heard of that. It's more popular nowadays. People talk about it a lot. But inflammation, by and large, is really two varieties. You have acute inflammation, which is actually a really good thing for the body. It's an amazing process. If I sprain my ankle, it gets painful and it's swollen and it's red. And that's acute inflammation. It's a very good process by the body. It keeps me from walking on it, for one. So if I rip the ligaments in my ankle, it'll keep me from putting weight on it so it can heal and it can recover. The problem is a thing called chronic inflammation or systemic inflammation, which runs essentially throughout the body, and it's driven by our diet, by the things that we eat. Then there's other causes of inflammation, but the primary one is what we're eating. So metabolic syndrome shows up with 5 different identifiable factors. So you have things like visceral obesity. Hey, come on in. No, you're good. We have visceral obesity is one of the main components. Insulin resistance, and insulin resistance is rampant in this culture. It's literally, and we'll talk about too with COVID, it's one of the main drivers of all the chronic diseases that we deal with. Hypertension or high blood pressure, high triglycerides, and low HDL and high cholesterol. So those are the 5 key identifiable and measurable factors of a thing called metabolic syndrome. Now, over time, metabolic syndrome leads to disease, which generally is identified as heart disease, lipid problems, hypertension or high blood pressure, type 2 diabetes, dementia. Do you guys know that they're calling dementia, Alzheimer's and dementia, they're calling it type 3 diabetes? That's the new mnemonic, because they know insulin resistance and the overconsumption of carbohydrates and bad food actually drives the rates of Alzheimer's and dementia. So it's more dietary related than genetic related. And that's not the message that we're hearing. Cancer, PCOS or polycystic ovarian syndrome, and then fatty liver disease. So inflammation leads to visceral obesity, insulin resistance, these components of metabolic syndrome, and then over time, it drives you toward heart disease, cancer, PCOS, others. So really at the root of this is inflammation. So with this inflammation thing, if you ever heard us do these type of workshops before, I always include this slide. I used to think that we invented this, but I saw somebody else use it, so I guess we're not as smart as we think we are. So it's GPS. So you want to turn off your GPS, because right now most people's GPS is set toward diabetes and cancer and cardiovascular disease. So all the chronic diseases of modern America are driven by this thing called inflammation. So you want to turn off your G, which stands for gluten. And people have heard about gluten sensitivity and people who have celiac disease. So celiac is really it's about 1% of the population that when they get exposed to gluten, they can smell bread from the other side of the room and they get viscerally ill, they get sick. So that's gluten intolerance, right? But about 90% of people that are Anglo-American, European descent are about 90+% of those people are highly sensitive to gluten. And gluten is in bread, pasta, cereal, crackers, chips, pretzels, cookies, bagels, muffins, pastries, donuts, even oatmeal. So essentially all the foods that most modern man likes to eat is loaded with gluten. It's highly neurotoxic, it drives up inflammation. And a lot of people think, well, I'll just get the gluten-free bread, or I'll get the gluten-free donuts or the gluten-free whatever. But the reality is those things tend to drive inflammation too because they turn so quickly into sugar. A good way to remember this is if you eat something and it turns to mush really, really quickly, like bread or pasta or cereal or crackers, then that mush is sugar. So before it even gets to like your digestive tract, your amylase in your saliva has already turned that grain or that gluten into sugar. And gluten causes irritable bowel syndrome, leaky gut. It causes leaky channels within the gut. So then your food is passing into the bloodstream, and then you're attacking your own food as if it's a bacteria or a virus. So G's the first one. There's 2 P's. You have processed food and processed dairy. And we all know processed food's not good for us. That's just, my daughter knows that, and she's 14. Processed dairy, and we'll go into that a little more in a second. And then the S stands for strawberries. No, sugar. Sugar's bad. We know sugar's bad. We all know. Everybody knows sugar's bad. So with cancer and sugar, You guys ever heard of a PET scan? PET scan? So what they do is they inject you with a radiographic, they inject you with sugar that has a radiographic tag on it, and then they put you through a scanner about an hour later, and they want to see where the sugar's collecting. That's how they find your tumor. Because cancer is such a voracious sugar feeder. It loves sugar. It's primarily driven, it's an obligate glucose metabolizer. So cancer loves sugar, so they'll inject you with sugar, and then an hour later they find out where the sugar collects. So cancer is directly driven by sugar and grains and things that turn to sugar, diabetes, neurological disease, autoimmune disease, and then also even COVID. Because we know that most people that have the worst time with COVID are people that have that what's called that cytokine storm. You guys have heard of that? The cytokine storm. That's the reason that the immune system attacks the body in such a way to cause blood clots and to cause lung damage and to cause neurological disorders. Because the thing is, I had COVID about 3 weeks ago now, 2.5, 3 weeks ago, and I had congestion. So I was congested, had kind of upper respiratory throat stuff. I had a very mild fever for like a day, and then I coughed for maybe like a half a day. Now, was I healthy or was I sick? Be careful with this one because it can kind of go both ways. Because you kind of sense the trap I'm setting here.
Well, you were healthy because your body fought off the virus really quickly.
Correct. So we're creating a barrier. The mucus and the snot that was all in my upper head and face was my body in its brilliance was creating a barrier to attract and to trap those invading pathogens. The coughing and the sneezing is the primary way of getting pathogens out of the upper respiratory tract. And the fever is your body's way of heating itself up to kill off bugs and germs and create an inhospitable environment for the virus, right? But we always think, well, you're sick, you're sick. In reality, that's the body doing the right thing at the right time. Now, the problem is when we have metabolic syndrome and we're so front-loaded with inflammation, the immune system creates an inappropriate response. So your body goes haywire and it attacks itself. So it's not, the symptoms that we feel are really the body doing the right thing at the right time. The problem is when it runs just uncontrolled. So we got to make that distinction. Commercial dairy, with commercial dairy, you're not getting the Hillsborough Road cows. You guys ever drove down Hillsborough Road? You see the cows that are all like happy in the field and they're like playing with each other. The babies are running by them, like there's sunshine and grass. Like those aren't the cows that we're getting with commercial dairy. They're literally pasture animals. They're feedlot animals. They keep them in a pen, generally indoors on a concrete slab, and they pump them full of hormones and antibiotics and vaccines. Their milk is allowed to contain a considerable amount of pus. There's parts per billion that they allow, and it's processed with pasteurization. So they actually take something that was probably not too bad, and they heat it up to 168 degrees. What happens to something that's alive when you heat it to 168 degrees? Kills it, right? So it denatures the proteins. It makes the calcium almost completely unabsorbable. Like the calcium from pasteurized cow's milk is almost useless. We consume more calcium than any other culture on the planet. And we have the highest rates of osteoporosis. And what other vitamin are we supposed to get out of milk? D, right? That's where we get our vitamin D. You need about 111 glasses per day to meet your vitamin D requirement. Ain't nobody drinking that much milk. And if you were, you'd have way bigger problems than just the vitamin D issues. So we don't help that. So what do? Mother's milk is best. That's ideal. It's the most perfect thing ever made on the planet. Mother's milk is wonderful, but if mom is unavailable, the next best option is raw milk. You ever had raw milk? Never? Never? You had it? How'd you get it?
My grandmother had a cow.
Oh, shit. There you go.
A dairy farm, actually.
Isn't raw milk illegal in some places?
That's a great point. He said raw milk is illegal, and he's 100% right. So you either have to own a cow or you have to do like a drug deal in a parking lot to get your milk, because it's illegal to sell raw milk in the state of Tennessee. You can get cigarettes, but you can't get raw milk, right? It's a thing called listeria. It's hysterical how they think you get listeria. It's ridiculous, right? It's all, anyway, don't get me started on that. So mother's milk is best, raw milk is, in raw milk too, by the way, you just pick out the hair and the dirt, like it tastes amazing, like you'd never even notice the difference, like you hard kidding. So organic is best. If you got to do milk, we do like almond milk, coconut milk, vanilla unsweetened, goes in my smoothies, it's fantastic. More calcium, a little more vitamin D, it's just as good. Or at least get organic because you're getting rid of some of the hormones and the antibiotics and that kind of deal. And yeah, raw's the ideal. But the problem is it's not just milk, it's also cheese and it's also ice cream and it's yogurt and it's all these other dairy products that we get that come from these unhealthy cows. So I just lost half the room because you can't eat your bread, pasta, cereal, crackers, chips, pretzels, cookies, bagels, or oatmeal. And then we lost the other half because now we can't do milk or cheese or whatever else, unless it's from raw organic, ideal. So we'll get to more. We need more protein. So there's a lot of myths. I hate the term misinformation because that's kind of all people say these days. But there's a lot of misinformation when it comes to nutrition. Everybody says we need more protein, we got to get more protein. The key is we need enough. So we don't need more, we just need an adequate amount of protein. So someone who, is a child doesn't need as much as someone who is a bodybuilder, or someone who's elderly doesn't need as much as someone in their 20s who runs marathons. So it's based on your activity level. And the key is the source. The health of the animal, it makes all the difference. So if the animal was healthy, then it's a healthy source of protein. So if the cow was healthy, it's a healthy steak. If the chicken was healthy, it's a healthy egg. It's a healthy chicken sandwich or a chicken breast, right? So it's all about the health of the animal. The problem is when we go to the grocery store, we've got like the organic meat and then we got the conventional meat, the free range, the non-GMO, antibiotic free, and then we got like the Kroger style meat. And it kind of looks the same, probably smells the same, and sort of tastes the same, right? Or close. But one's like $12 a pound and one's like $6, right? So the hard part is in the grocery store. All the decisions happen at the checkout aisle. All the decisions happen at the point of purchase. That's what we got to remember. So here's a question, and you'll all answer it the right way because you know the right answer. If we spend money on things that make our bodies healthier, is that an investment or is that an expense? It's an investment, right? We all know that, right? We got to take our food budget and our exercise expenditure budget and chiropractic budget, whatever, that makes us healthier. We got to take that out of like the cable TV and the cell phone and the Netflix category and kind of move it into like the investment, not the expense category. Because our bodies, with this one body we get, this meat vehicle, so to speak, is the one thing that we get to carry us through life, to spend time with our grandkids, to be able to serve and do things at our church and volunteer in the community. Like how healthy we are dictates how much of that we're able to do. And too much protein converts to sugar. So if you eat more protein than your body can use at a sitting, then the excess of that turns to sugar. Most men, it's like 30 grams, 35 is the max you can absorb in one sitting. Most women's like 20, 25 maybe. If you get a big chicken breast, it's like 50, 70 grams of protein in one sitting. Like your body can't do anything with that, so it converts it into sugar. So it turns to fat, that kind of thing. So healthy cows, Hillsborough Road cows, that's not Hillsborough Road, but that's what they look like. And those are like your traditional feedlot cattle. More stress hormone, they're eating grain. What happens to an animal if you keep them sedentary and you feed them grains all day? They get fatter and they get sicker. So basically, that's like us. We're like feedlot cattle, right? We just eat grain all day and we watch Netflix and we become like feed. And we're pumped full of vaccines and antibiotics and everything else. So we're essentially mimicking feedlot cattle in a lot of ways. And then this is the healthy chickens that kind of hang out with the cows. And then that's the so this is a chicken coop and it's over top of the tilapia farm. Do you know why they do that?
Oh yeah, feeds the
It's twofer. Yeah, it's a twofer. Yeah. So the droppings feed the tilapia. Tilapia is frankenfish, by the way. There ain't no such thing as a wild-caught tilapia, an organic tilapia. It is a man-made, manufactured, just toxic, beyond all toxic animal. And the problem is if you get those fish sticks, Gordon's fish, whatever, those are just purely like, just picture them chicken pooping into your fish stick. That'll help. That'll change Farm raised, and then when they get like the wild caught salmon versus the farm raised, they have to add like a orange dye to it to make it look like it's prettier. So, and by the way, with fish, smaller fish are better. You want to avoid your bigger. You want to eat fish with gills, like ones that actually swim. They don't just crawl along the bottom of the ocean eating the poop of everything else that drops down, right? Because they bioaccumulate toxins. But you also want to eat the smaller fish because the bigger fish eat the smaller fish. So they accumulate toxins, right? But who doesn't love a crab leg and a shrimp scampi, right? With nutrition, by the way, once you become metabolically flexible, which we'll talk about how to do that in a minute, then it's the 80-20 rule. So it's 80% healthy, it's 20% American. So 80-20. So you don't have to be perfect, you just got to do 80-20. A lot of people are like 80% American and 20% healthy, right? I eat a salad every now and then, right? So we got to switch up that equation just a tad. Healthy fats, you got your grass-fed meats. They're one of the best forms of healthy fats, actually come from grass-fed cattle. They have better omega-3 to omega-6 ratios. They've got conjugated linoleic acid. They got better arachidonic acid. So grass-fed beef is one of the best things you can eat. Grass-fed butter and ghee, which is clarified butter, avocados, and then avocado oil. So we use that spray avocado oil in our household. It's got a really, really high flash temperature. Because the worst thing you can do to a good fat is turn it into a bad fat. Do you know how you turn a good fat into a bad fat? Heat it up too much. That's how you turn it rancid. Like olive oil, if you heat it up on a pan, it starts to smoke. You just turned a good, healthy fat into a bad fat because it turns rancid under extreme heat. So tree nuts, not peanuts. By the way, peanuts are legumes. They grow on the ground. They're not nuts. They are moldy and they're high in omega-6s versus the almonds, macadamia, pecans, walnuts. Those are high in omega-3s. So you want to get your tree nuts, the ones that grow up in the trees. Fatty fish, herring, yuck. Mackerel, yuck. Sardines, yuck. Salmon, yay. I'll do that. So I'm not a big fishy fish. Anybody eat like sardines? You like?
Yeah, I get my sardines like Italy, man.
From Italy?
Yeah.
My dad used to get like the can that you roll the deal with the little corkscrew, whatever, and he'd have a half a gallon of buttermilk. So he'd do his sardines in his buttermilk. I have like childhood trauma around watching him do that. Coconut cooking oils, extra olive oil. These are your low temperature cooking oils, like olive oil. Use it as a topping. And then your higher temperatures are like your coconut oils. Coconut, you can blast it with like a volcano and you can't turn it rancid. Like it's extremely high flash temperature. So we use a lot of that. Vitamin D. If you hadn't heard about vitamin D, you've been living under a rock. Like vitamin D, we got to take vitamin D. Where do we get D from? The sun, right? That's why there's a cold and flu season, because the sun comes out in the summer and spring, and then the colds and flu generally magically go away unless they were made in a lab and released from China. And then when this winter time hits, then cold and flu season magically returns. There's a thing called seasonal affective disorder. You ever heard of that? When does that happen? When the sun goes down. When does it magically go away? When the sun comes back up. So the vitamin D it's a pro-hormone. It's not a vitamin. Like we're designed to be running around naked in like a loincloth all day long. That's the way God made us. We weren't supposed to be indoors under fluorescent lights, working in a cubicle. Like we're supposed to be outdoors in the sun. And the cultures that get the most sun have the least skin cancer. You get that? That's a myth that the sun causes skin cancer. Now it can be a small contributing factor in some people, but it's a tiny, if the sun caused skin cancer, we'd all get it on the tip of our nose, on our forehead, and on the back of our hands. That's where we get all, my grandfather had melanoma on the back of his knee. Like the sun caused that. There's anal melanoma where the sun don't shine. So if you can get that from sun, draw me a diagram of that. So yeah, it's not the sun. We need the sun. We got to have the sun. And vitamin D is a prohormone. It's associated with the immune system. It's associated with about 6 different cancers in low vitamin D. The key is you got to get your blood level above 60. So if you go to your doctor and you get the blood test, they say, well, your vitamin D is fine. Well, that means you were above 30. So the medical range for normal, if you go to the traditional medical world, is between 30 and 100. As long as you're above 30, then you're fine. Well, 30 is the cutoff for rickets. There ain't nobody walking around with rickets much anymore. I don't see that very often. So you got to get above 60 to reduce your risk of colds and flus and problem of the immune system, and diabetes. Type 2 diabetes is associated with that. It's literally a vital hormone for the body that we have to have. This was an interesting research out of Asia, where they took percentage of COVID cases, and these were people that were critical, and these were people that were severe cases. These are kind of your ordinary cases, and these were your mild cases. And this is someone whose vitamin D level is less than 20, which there's a lot of people in America who have vitamin D levels that are less than 20. And this is 21, 29, and then the green is above 30. Again, cutoff for rickets, not like 60 to 90. These are people who are like on the borderline of getting a bone softening disease because they're so deficient, but they're considering them like the normal people. So the people that were critical, most of them had either severely low vitamin D or really low vitamin D. And then you'll notice, like, the better your vitamin D level gets, the milder your symptoms and your caseload gets with COVID. Like, why is nobody, if Fauci would have been talking about that for the last 2 years, the number of things that we did not talk about that we could have over the last 2 years that would have changed the whole scope of this problem. But no, it's all about masks and keep 6 feet and hand sanitizer and shots. It's all we talk about. It's really criminal when it comes down to it. And this is a simple, easy, we could have gotten everyone in America's vitamin D level above 60 within 90 days. Easy. It's cheap, like literally, we have a dropper form that will probably last you like half a year, and it's like $30 for a whole dropper full, for a whole container worth of it. So it's ridiculously simple. But there's no money in natural products. You can't patent vitamin D because it's found in nature. So there's no drug company that's doing double-blind studies, and nobody wants to see if that stuff really works. And it sounds all conspiracy theorist and tinfoil hat, but that's just the world that we're currently in. Metabolic flexibility, that's the key. We want to get you metabolically flexible, because people think, well, forget, if I can never eat a piece of bread again, I'm not even going to do all this. Like, who cares? It's not worth it, right? The trick is, when you become metabolically flexible, you can do your cheat meals. You can do your vacation meals. The problem is, most people have been on vacation since like Reagan was in office. So like, it's time to pull it in a little bit, tighten it up, and let's get serious for 6 weeks. And then, then we can back it back down and, have some cheat meals from time to time. So the trick is to get your body to preferentially use fat for fuel versus carbohydrates for fuel. Our body, if you eat sugar, your body will always use that for fuel. If you eat bread, your body will always use that preferentially for fuel. The trick is, you have to starve. We'll talk about how this works with intermittent fasting, but you got to starve your body of the carbohydrates for a period of time, and then give your body no other option but to use fat for fuel. And your brain would rather run on fat or ketones than it would on carbohydrates. It preferentially prefers ketones, but if sugar and carbs are in the equation, it'll always use those sugar and carbs. It's just the way we're genetically designed. By the way, too, 3,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago, what was our access to sugar? Honey. So you had to climb a tree, and you had to fight off like killer bees, and you had to get their hive somehow, and then you had to get it down onto the ground. Like, you had to put your life at risk to get access to sugar. Now we go into twice dailies, and you got like 2 full rows, and it's 99 cents a bar, right? So our access to carbohydrates is really unbelievable. Food by God. Veggies, fruit, nuts and seeds, and then healthy meats. It's really that simple. So 80, 20. 80-20, right? 80% that, 20%. It's really not that hard. It's just we gotta make it that important. It's like the chocolate. If I put arsenic in your chocolate, you wouldn't eat it again because you know it would kill you, right? The problem is, we don't view a candy bar. We don't view Skittles. We don't review those things as really all that bad. We just think, who cares? You're making a big deal out of nothing. Everybody's eating it. Well, everybody else is also fat, sick, and nearly dead. We all have cancer, heart disease, diabetes. 1 out of 2 men and 1 out of 3 women will get cancer in the U.S. Was that true 1,000 years ago? A million people will die of heart disease this year in North America. 1 million. Is that because they forgot to take their pills? No. They're going to take their pills, more pills than they've ever taken in their life, and they're going to die anyway. Because we're literally led to believe that your choices don't matter. Listen to the experts. Just do what we tell you. Shut up. Stay a customer of big food, big pharma, big government, big sugar, big dairy. All want us just right where we're at. Keep your mouth shut, watch Netflix, and crack open the beer. That's where you do the best. Intermittent fasting. So intermittent fasting, the benefits in terms of systemic benefits are really almost too many to name. It affects the blood in a positive way, the liver, the intestines, the brain, heart. Every part of the body benefits from intermittent fasting. So intermittent fasting, there's 50 different ways to do it. There's an OMAD, which is you do 1 meal a day. So people do like just dinner and then they skip food. So what happens is when we eat dinner, so tonight we'll go home and eat our dinner, that immediately goes to the liver first. So whatever carbohydrates we eat or excess protein we eat, it essentially goes through the bloodstream and then gets processed through the liver. And the excess of that gets spilled over and then your body has to store it as fat. So after that meal, it takes about 10 hours. Some people it's more like 12 hours. But after 12 hours of no food or no starvation or starvating, your body has emptied the liver of sugar. So it basically uses up what's in the bloodstream, and then it empties the liver so there's no more sugar available or on hand. So then your body has to go searching for fuel. So it has to use fat stores, and it's mobilizing fat to feed and fuel your body. But the problem is we wake up at 7 a.m. and then we eat again. So we're always recirculating sugar through the body. It never forces the body to go into a mild ketosis where it has to go looking for fat, using fat for fuel. So the most common way for people to do intermittent fasting is a 16-8. So 16 hours off, and then you eat in an 8-hour window. Some people have to start with like 14 and 10, or 12 and 12 for some people because they eat so often. And a lot of people say, well, I really don't eat that much. Or I usually skip breakfast anyway. Well, the problem is that first meal that people will eat is so full of carbohydrates and sugar that it immediately refills the liver, spills back into the bloodstream, and then it starts that process all over again. So the trick to intermittent fasting is the first meal that you eat, like your first meal, when you break your fast, it has to be low glycemic. Low sugar, low carbs, so it's really just protein, veggies, low sugar, so that your body doesn't go right back into that sugar burning mode again. You kind of stay in ketosis. Does that make sense? And then like once you're metabolically flexible, so what I'll do is I'll eat my dinner and then I'll eat my first meal around 1 p.m. That's kind of my breakfast, so to speak. But then for that meal, I try to eat like a salad with some sort of meat, veggie, or I'll do like a chicken breast and broccoli or a steak and some asparagus. So eat some kind of meal like that. So then for dinner, I can be a little more liberal. Like if I want to have a piece of cheesecake after dinner, or if I want to have some chocolate or do whatever, it gives me, I have that leeway to where it doesn't throw me back into a full-blown sugar burner. Does that make sense? So you got to do this kind of slowly over time. But the real key with this is it reduces inflammation, and it increases insulin sensitivity, decreases insulin, decreases inflammation, reduces inflammation, reduces inflammation. That's the real big underlying key benefit of intermittent fasting is it's reducing inflammation. That's really the trick. Nervous system, again, I mean, you guys are current patients here. You sort of get this at least to some degree. Is that your brain, there's 4 key things you have to learn about our body. Number 1 is our bodies are designed to heal. We lose that a lot when we kind of think of ourselves as a victim or we're weak or we're susceptible to bacteria and viruses. Our bodies are designed to heal. We've got the most amazing healing power inside of our body. That magical night when mom and dad got together and sperm and egg came together, right, and created you, right? It happened. I promise you it did. Right? Well, the power that was in that moment is currently in you now. It's healing your body. It's running your body. It's your brain's the first organ to form in the body. So when those cells start to divide, 2 becomes 4 and 8 and 16, the first organ that forms is the brain. And then that little tail grows off of the brain. That becomes your spinal cord. And then you get these little nerves that form your eyes and your ears and your thyroid and your sinuses and your kidneys. Like everything's formed. It's like a tree trunk, branches, and all the fruit. Our brain is like an electrical generator. It's basically sending messages 300 miles an hour down the spinal cord and out the nerves into all your organs, all your cells, and all your tissues. So the first concept is your body's designed to heal. You sprain your ankle, it heals. Cut your finger, your body heals. You get a cold or you get COVID, 99.997% of the time, your body heals itself. The second concept is your nervous system controls all health and all healing. If I cut the nerve to your heart, what would happen to your heart? Done, right? Any volunteers? You cut the nerve to the heart's dead. If you pinch the nerve, let's say you had a whiplash when you were 20, and it moves the spine out of position, and it starts pinching the nerve to the heart, and we leave that there for 10, 20, 30 years. What's slowly happening to the heart? Yeah, right. Over time, right? Because the brain can't get the messages to the heart. What if you don't have any pain? What if you don't really have any symptoms? Like, how would you know how well your heart is functioning if you didn't know how well the nerve was functioning that was controlling it? So that's really the name of the game. So in order for your heart to beat, for your lungs to breathe, to digest food, your brain is literally sending messages back and forth, and that's that pathway of health between your brain and your body. So our job, our goal, the reason you come in to get adjusted, most people want to feel better, get their pain to go away, but it's to get the pressure off the nervous system so your brain is allowed to control the body so you can heal. And then you add in better food and you start exercising and start intermittent fasting, and then that's the trick to health. That's really the key. So on that note, ChiroThin. This is kind of our 6-week. We'll kind of go through some details. I hate that it's called ChiroThin because it implies that it's just about weight loss. I mean, you can eat prepackaged garbage food from Jenny Craig or whoever that is, and you can lose weight. So everybody can lose weight with different things. All weight loss works. It's just what mechanism are you using to get there, and then is it sustainable long term? Like, I would never get up here and teach something that it'll work for 6 weeks, but then you got to keep doing some sort of pills or packaged food or some other garbage in order to keep it off. That's not what this is about. So the background of this, it was developed by the medical community. They worked in weight loss centers, 40 plus years, sound scientific principles, but it works essentially. U.S. So it's kind of like it's similar to the program that a lot of these people like the ladies that'll have a baby that are Hollywood actresses. That's how they lose weight and get back onto the movie set so quick. Some like athletes will use it if they have to cut weight, and so it helps to. It's the reason, the secret that a lot of people use to get back into shape so quick. So really, it's dietary behavioral modifications. There's no injections, but it does use 2 supplements. So there's 2 supplements that go along with it. There's a product called AGGR, which is green coffee bean extract, African mango, raspberry ketones, and green tea extract. So it's uncaffeinated, but you take it before your meals. So it helps to mobilize, it helps us to suppress some of the appetite, so you're not as hungry when you do eat. But then it's also helping to mobilize fat, so when you between your meals, you're actually using some of the fat that you eat in the meal, and it's used for fuel between the meals. So you're actually using it more for energy. And then there's a supplement that you take 3 times a day. It's little drops that go underneath your tongue, which have amino. Is it on this slide? I think it's on another slide. Amino acids. It's essentially vitamins, minerals, amino acids that helps to give your body what it needs, so that it doesn't feel like you're starving. So that's really the trick, is because if our hunger gets out of control, we'll quit this in a minute. Like if that craving gets too big. So these are the ones you do to help kind of reset the metabolism. The trick with this, so the way this program works, the first 2 days you do a loading phase. So the first 2 days, you want to try to eat at least 5,000 calories a day for 2 days, which sounds like a big old party. When you're sweating through your 3rd bowl of cereal, or you're trying to like get down, like it sounds fun, but 5,000 calories is pretty daunting. I don't know, have you ever done that on purpose? Well, the first day wasn't too bad, and the second day for me, I was like, oh my gosh. Like, I'd rather go run 10 miles and try to finish this last. But like macadamia nuts, I didn't know this till after the fact. I could have eaten macadamia nuts have like 1,000 calories in a cup. So you do like 2 or 3 cups of that, snack on them all day. But with those first 2 loading days, you can kind of eat whatever you want. The trick is we want to get the metabolism revved up. So you influx with all that calorie and all that food, and you get the liver to start dumping enzymes, and then that cranks up the metabolism. And then on day 3, we drop the bottom out of it. So you drop the caloric intake way down, and then those are 2 meals per day. So you're doing lunch and dinner for the next 42 days. So the lunch and dinner, you're incorporating intermittent fasting. So you're doing a lunch and dinner with protein, vegetables, and fruit. 4 ounces of protein, 4 ounces of veggies, and 4 ounces of fruit. And there's some men that are like they don't want to lose too much weight, or some people that don't want to lose. We can modify the 6 ounces instead of 4, but it's basically 4, 4, and 4. 4 ounces of fruit, 4 ounces of veggies, 4 ounces of lean meat or some sort of protein source. And that's kind of it. But you do, and this is sort of the short term with this, is you do want to avoid taking in too much fat. So like in this 6 weeks, we would say don't eat eggs because we want to avoid foods that can be potential food allergens. We're detoxing the body of all the grains and the dairy and the bad fats and the foods that cause allergic reactions or have allergenic effects. And then we want to increase just lean, healthy protein, lean veggies, and then healthy fruit. And there's a whole guide that comes with it. So you get your instruction manual, you get your friendly recipe guide, and we'll show you some pictures of some of the foods, but it's really some of the best food. We started cooking off this and like, gosh, this stuff actually really tastes good. And then you can bulk it up with like a lot of the free vegetables. So there's a whole list of free veggies like cabbage and bell peppers, and you can add those to the foods or snack on them through the day. And most people, you'd be amazed, most people say they don't really ever feel full. That'd be surprising because it's only like 1,200 calories, 1,500 calories a day, but it's real good, healthy, lean, raw food with tons of fiber. So you're really you don't feel like you're starving, but you're mobilizing fat like wild. Fat cell reduction, so suppress the appetite, boost the metabolism. The biggest thing that we do with this is we reset or redo your established set points, your BMR and your BMI. Your basal metabolic rate is essentially how many calories you burn per day doing nothing. So like most of us have a set point, and you probably experience this too. It's like I can change the way I eat and I might lose like 5 pounds, but I kind of get stuck. Or I eat like a pig and I might only gain a few pounds, but you kind of stay at like sort of whatever your designated set point is. So we want to change that set point, which is like if you don't change your set point, then you'll lose weight or you'll lose some weight, and then you just kind of get stuck, or you just rebound right back to where you started because your BMR and your BMI never really changed. So that's really the trick. So there's a loading phase. That's the 2-day party where you eat whatever you want. And then there's a 42-day losing phase. And then you have a 4-week locking phase. So in the locking phase, which is kind of after the program is over, for those 4 weeks, you're weighing yourself every day. And you want to make sure your weight doesn't fluctuate more than 2 pounds for a man, or 1 to 2, or 2 to 3 for a man, and 1 to 2 for a woman. So you're kind of watching every day. It's like, am I kind of staying in that little range? And then you can add back breakfast if you want. And you can even add in like a cheat meal on the weekends if you want, just for those 4 weeks. Because we want to establish that new set point. So you load and then you lose, and then you lock that weight in. And then if you want to lose again, then you lose again, and you lock it in, lose it in. So it's a progression so that you don't just rebound and go right back to where you started. That's the biggest frustration people have is like, yeah, I did the program, I did great, I did Atkins, or I did Whole30, or I did whatever, but they never kind of stuck with it. So you got to figure out a way to do this for life. The problem with some of the medical weight loss stuff, it's very expensive. You do injections, they're doing, like excessive fat loss or liposuction. You're always hungry. Some of the biggest complaints there. Behavioral guidance, burn fat, suppress hunger, eliminate cravings, and then reestablish those new set points. That is the name of the game. So it's 2 meals per day, certain blends of protein, veggies, fruits, and there are breads that are allowed. There's certain types of breads, like Melba toast kind of things. I would discourage unless you just are dying for a piece of bread. Like, try to avoid those unless you just really, really need to. Low glycemic, and the biggest thing, it's anti-inflammatory. So most people, when they do this program, not only do they start losing weight, but they start to have less headaches. They start sleeping better. Their energy level goes through the roof. Like, their skin begins to clear up. Their brain fog lifts. Migraines go away because you're reducing that. The joint pain goes because you're reducing all that inflammation. That's really the name of the game. And you're doing it with real food. You're not doing it with a ton of crazy supplements. Like, there's 2 things that support, but you don't take these forever. Those are just to get you through the 42 days, and then you're sort of on your own. You just kind of go about your regular program. Typical meals, I pulled some of these off of like our website. We have a Facebook page that's you'll get access to that has like recipes and people that kind of share their story and the things that they found easy and things they struggled with. So those are all meals from theirs. That's egg roll in a bowl. So really pretty amazing stuff. But you do have to do a little preparation. You got to weigh your food. You got to prepare for the next day. You got to shop. There's a shopping list in there. But it does take a little bit of planning and preparation. But at the end of the day, you're worth it. I mean, you're worth taking an extra 5 minutes a day to figure out how to eat this healthy food so that you can get moving in the right direction. So we do an initial consultation, health history, we weigh you, we do an 8-point measurement, take your measurements, kind of answer any questions, help you get started, and then you do a 42-day supply of the ChiroThin formula, and then the 6 weekly follow-up visits. So every once a week you'll come in, we'll chat with you. You have access to our email, text, Facebook group, so any support, any help you need along the way, ask tons of questions. We can help walk you through it. It's really not that complicated, but we're here for you. And then the manuals, you get some online resources as well, and then the recipe book. So most companies like to lose 20 pounds. Weight Watchers is anywhere from 12 weeks, $300 and up. This program is 3 to 6 weeks to lose 20 pounds and $16.99, which is actually not the price. We do a discount here. But to lose 20 pounds in 3 to 6 weeks is that amount. Nutrisystem, it takes over 12 weeks, about $1,500. And then Jenny Craig is 15 to 20 weeks to lose 20 pounds, and it's cost you $1,500 to $2,000. So those things are expensive. And a lot of these are using like either some antiquated point system. It's like, I can have a brownie, but it takes up 9 of my points. It's like, what? Like, you're not changing your metabolism. You're not reducing inflammation. You're not detoxing the body. You're not teaching it to use fat for fuel. You're just counting your points, right? That's why you're either doing that madness forever, or you can do it for a little bit and you kind of get stuck, or you're eating all this prepackaged Nutrisystem mail-in food, which who's going to do that forever? Nobody, unless you're a psychopath. Food savings. Most people save a lot of money when they're on this because they're eating like 1 less meal a day, so that cuts out breakfast. That's $100 to $200. Junk food and snacks, that's a low figure for me. That'd be way more than that. And then $160, basically $4 a day, less processed food, less fast food, less eating out. So most people on average save about $400 to $500 on just food. So instead of the $1,700 that we're supposed to charge for this, we do it at like half price. I want to get a lot of people to do it. And then you tell your friends about it and we'll just figure that out. We'll raise the price later. But anyways, $850 for the 6 weeks. That's the price. And here's some folks that have done the program. Julie and Gabe, husband and wife, they did it together. She lost 14 pounds, 18 inches. She didn't have as much to lose, but she wanted her husband to get healthy, so she kind of did it so that he would do it. It was kind of one of those deals. He lost 31 pounds and lost 21 inches. That's in 6 weeks. And then this is Sheila. She lost 29 and 29, so she lost 29 pounds and 29 inches in 42 days. She kind of slipped up a little bit in the holidays, and now she's kind of jumping back on board. I think she got back on January. but she doesn't have to pay again. She's got all the recipes. She knows what to do. She just got to get back on track. This is a marathon, not a sprint. So if you screw up, fall off track, get back on track. That's the name of the game. Bert's my man. So 36 pounds and 21 inches in 42 days. Of course, men could skip one breakfast and lose 5 pounds, right? It's not fair. I know. But you guys are the more important gender. Like, that's why we're more expendable. So we can lose weight easier, but you guys are more important. And he's actually standing less crooked because he got under chiropractic care at the same time. So Bert's great. And then he got married. He did this because he was getting married, so he was kind of losing for his new bride. And she lived out of town, so she hadn't seen him in like 2 or 3. She didn't see him from here to here. So she showed up, and she's like, "Oh, this is who I get to marry." So, and energy got better. He works like a weird third shift, so he's tired all the time. He's yawning in the office, so he didn't change his schedule. He still works third shift, but he's packing his little lunch, and he's doing it. He feels better, sleeps better, better energy, and he gets to live with a bride now that they get to go walk on the beach and do whatever middle-aged people do when they get married and they don't have any kids, right? And then this Michelle, she's another one of those that she did it mainly because of her husband, but she lost 18 pounds, 10 inches. If you go on that Facebook group, most of the recipes are hers. Like, she was just voracious. Every time she'd try something new, she put a new recipe on there. And then this is her husband, Porter. So he was one of those, something's going to kill you anyway. Like, why even? You got to die of something. He's one of those guys. Had his bourbon every night kind of guy. I think he lost 40 or 50 pounds in the first 8 weeks. And then he did the program again. And this is almost a year later that he's just kept it off. And I asked him, I said, do you think it's easier or harder than you would imagine? He said, it's 1,000% easier than I'd ever thought it would be. He said, I thought, because and he made the good point. He said, I always associated with getting healthier and changing my diet. I always associated that with deprivation. Like, that was just depriving me of something. But he said the real deprivation was being tired all the time, passing out on the couch, not being able to play with my grandkids. Like, that was the real deprivation. It wasn't the changing my diet and eating healthier. He said it was what I was missing with my family. So that's what this is all about. All right, that's all I got. Any questions? Concerns? Complaints?
Explain the loading thing again.
The loading?
Yeah, I don't understand how that.
So it's 5,000 calories a day.
What does it do?
Oh, so it stimulates the metabolism. So you're taking these drops during those 2 days. So you're creating kind of a memory with the body when it's getting these nutrients and the calorie consumption goes way up. Then when you pull the calories down on day 3, you're still taking the supplement. So it helps your body kind of remember to keep the metabolism revved up. So you're revving up the metabolism, and then you're pulling away the calories, and you keep your metabolism revved up.
Eating more than you're eating.
Correct. Yep.
So it's set at the 5,000 and then you trigger it and think it's still.
Correct. Most people kind of eat the way they normally eat, and then they go on a diet. Well, then your metabolism kind of stays there. And then this ramps up your metabolism, and then the calories drop out, and then it stays at a higher calorie per day set point. The better you load, the better you lose. Because people say, I'll do 3,000. That's enough. This is ridiculous. Why am I trying to lose weight? Why am I eating too much? The better you load, the better you lose. And if you don't hit your 5,000 calories, you stop the program and you wait a week and then you start over again with another loading day. Like, do not mess up the loading day. That's the difference that makes all the difference. Well, it's not the difference that makes all the difference, but it's a big piece of the puzzle. And water. You got to do a gallon of water a day. Everybody's like, oh. That's a big one. And then that's a big part of the detoxification process too. Like, you're literally detoxing the liver, the colon, the bladder, the kidneys. Like, you're literally flushing the body and it helps to curb hunger as well.
Aren't fruits higher in sugar? Why would you want to have the same 4, 4, and 4 when more sugar is in fruits?
They are. You can get, well, sugars offset that a lot with fiber. But yes, your lower glycemic fruits are better. So like berries, blueberries, raspberries, strawberries, lemons, limes, which you're not going to eat 4 ounces of a lemon unless you're crazy. Apples, Granny Smith apples are better. But you know, at the end of the day, like your calories are so low and you're getting fiber and you're getting protein, like if you get a little bit of sugar from that apple, that's fine. We don't really nitpick the heck out of like, oh my gosh, you had a red apple instead of a Granny Smith. That's all good. And then your veggies, it's all listed in there. There's a whole, you can look through the materials if you want, but there's a whole list of like your approved veggies. Like you don't do below ground veggies. Like you want to stick to like stuff that grows above ground, not potatoes and things like that. So that's the key. 6 weeks. Bikini season's around the corner, that kind of thing. Awesome, guys. Questions?
Does this principle work without the supplements, or is that, I mean, I know.
Yeah, I was going to tell you that too. Yeah, you don't have to do the program. You don't have to
I know,
spend the
but
money.
I mean, I know that supports, but do the principles that you like,
Yes.
loading and everything still work?
Loading, I don't know the efficacy of the loading phase. I'm glad you brought that up. Yes, it will still work. You'll still decrease if you're drinking a gallon of water a day, 2 meals, intermittent fasting, low glycemic, low carbs, low grains, low dairy. Yes, you will lose weight. You'll feel better. Absolutely. Comparatively, like is it 10 less pounds or 4 less? I don't know. And that's the thing too, is you don't have to pay for a program. Like you can do all this on your own. You just go do it. What I've seen though in the years of doing this is the people that don't have like some accountability in a program and a little bit of skin in the game. If I gave this, I used to do nutrition classes for free for 15 years. I'd do them for free. Here's the program. I'd have like one lady who was a diehard. She'd always come to the same workshop every year. She's the only one that would do like the 30-day challenge. Like no one else. But when I start charging for it, it's like magically people want to do it. It's like, what is that? Maybe it's therapeutic to actually pay for things because we stay accountable and we actually put the work in and we don't cheat. And so there's something to that. That's why we do it at half price, is just to get people to do it. Like just do it. So anyway, thank you guys.